The zip tie bit into my wrist before I even understood what was happening. Cold concrete under my knees. A flashlight beam cutting across my face, so bright I couldn't see who was holding it. Somewhere behind the light, a phone camera clicked. Not a photo, a video, the little red dot blinking steady in the dark. "Smile for the camera, Dad," she said. Her voice had a laugh folded inside it, the kind you save for something you've been waiting a long time to enjoy. A car door slammed. Boots on gravel. Then a second voice, older, flatter, the voice of a man who'd said this sentence 1,000 times and was tired of the taste of it. "Sir, you're being placed under arrest." I didn't fight. I didn't speak. I just watched the red dot on her phone blink, 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 and thought, she planned this. My name is Walter Kessler. I'm 61 years old, and for 34 years I built furniture. Not flat pack, not big box, real furniture. Oak dining tables that outlive marriages. I started Kessler & Sons Woodworks in 1992 with $4,000 I borrowed against a pickup truck, and by the time this story starts, that shop was worth $2.3 million, employed 11 people, and supplied custom pieces to 3 states. I had 2 children. My son, Marcus, 33, ran logistics for a shipping company in Ohio and called me every Sunday, like clockwork, for 15 years. My daughter, Renata, 36, sharp, magnetic, the kind of person who could sell you your own coat, had been helping run the business side of the shop for the last 2 years, ever since my wife Doris passed and my eyesight started giving me trouble reading contracts. I trusted her with the books. I trusted her with the bank passwords. I trusted her with power of attorney, signed 18 months earlier. "Just in case," she'd said. "Just so things are easier for you, Dad." That trust is what put the zip ties on my wrists at 2 in the morning. 3 weeks before the arrest, I walked into the shop's back office to grab a torque wrench I'd left on the filing cabinet, and I heard Renata's voice through the half-open door before I saw her. She wasn't alone. Her boyfriend, Trent, a man I'd met exactly 4 times, always in a different luxury watch, was leaning against my desk with a glass of my good scotch in his hand, the bottle I keep for closing big client deals, not for a Tuesday afternoon. "He still thinks he runs this place," Renata said, and I heard ice clink against glass. "It's actually sad. He can't even read the P&L anymore without his readers, and he's too proud to ask for help, so he just signs whatever I put in front of him." Trent laughed, that low, satisfied laugh of a man watching a plan work. "And the LLC transfer?" "Filed. He signed it thinking it was a supplier renewal." She swirled the scotch. "By Christmas, Kessler & Sons is Kessler & Daughter. And Dad's just furniture. Emeritus. A nice old man in a workshop." I stood in that hallway holding a torque wrench, and something in my chest went very still and very cold. Not rage. Not yet. Something quieter. Something that started counting. That night, I didn't confront her. I went home, and I opened the fireproof box where I kept copies of everything Doris always told me to keep copies of. I pulled the supplier renewal I remembered signing 11 days earlier. It wasn't a supplier renewal. It was an assignment of membership interest, transferring 60% of Kessler & Sons Woodworks LLC to Renata Kessler-Voss, effective immediately, notarized by a notary I'd never met, at an address I'd never visited. My hands didn't shake. I photographed every page. I asked Renata about it over dinner, keeping my voice easy, curious, an old man mildly confused. "Found some paperwork about the LLC. 60% transfer. Can you walk me through that, sweetheart?" She didn't blink. "Dad, that's just a standard asset protection restructure. Marcus Halloway, my attorney, recommended it given your, health situation. It shields the company from personal liability if anything happens to you. It's actually a really smart move, tax-wise. You'd have signed something similar eventually anyway." I nodded slowly. "Makes sense. You always did understand this stuff better than me." She smiled. I smiled back. Inside, I was already dialing a real attorney the next morning. The real attorney, a sharp woman named Priya Anand who'd handled Doris's estate, took one look at the document and went quiet in a way lawyers only go quiet when something is very wrong. "Walter, this isn't asset protection. This transfer strips you of controlling interest. You're now a minority owner in your own company. And this notary stamp," she turned her laptop toward me, Belongs to a woman who lost her commission 8 months ago for fraudulent notarizations. She's under state investigation. I sat very still. Then I asked her to pull the bank records. The bank records took 2 weeks and cost me $1,100 in forensic accounting fees. What came back made my stomach drop in a way the LLC document hadn't. Over 14 months, Renata had moved $187,000 out of the company's operating account into a shell LLC registered to Trent's name, Voss Capital Solutions, under the label consulting fees. Voss Capital Solutions had no employees, no website, no invoices on file. It had a P.O. box in Delaware and a single wire transfer history, money coming from me, going to them. I remembered the scotch. I remembered he just signs whatever I put in front of him. I sat in Priya's office and felt something in me shift from wounded to methodical. I went back to the shop late one evening to check inventory. A lie, but a useful one. I'd left my truck around the corner and walked in the back entrance, the one that doesn't trip the front bell. Renata and Trent were in the office again. This time I didn't need to eavesdrop by accident. I stood in the dark hallway on purpose, phone already recording in my breast pocket. He's been asking a lot of questions lately, Trent said. About the LLC. About the transfer. You sure he doesn't suspect? Renata laughed, that same bright, careless laugh. Trent, my father built furniture for 30 years. He thinks a hard drive is something you sit on. He's not going to catch a shell company registered in Delaware. He can barely catch a cold. A pause, the clink of ice. Once the police thing goes through, it won't matter what he suspects anyway. Nobody believes a man with a record. That was the first time I heard about the police thing. I stood in the dark, recording, and felt the last soft part of my heart toward my daughter go quiet and hard, like a knot pulling tight an old rope. I made a decision that night in my truck, sitting in the dark parking lot, listening to my own recorded heartbeat through the phone speaker. I was going to become exactly what she already believed I was. Starting the next morning, I let my hands tremble slightly when I signed things. Not enough to alarm anyone, just enough to be noticed. I started asking Renata to remind me of things I remembered perfectly well. I bought a cheap pair of drugstore readers I didn't need and wore them low on my nose, peering over them like a man losing his grip. I let my Sunday calls with Marcus drift to, I don't want to worry you, son. I've just been tired lately. Inside, I was sharper than I'd been in 10 years. Every performance had a purpose. A confused old man doesn't get his safe rekeyed. A confused old man doesn't get his email password changed. A confused old man is the kind of man people commit crimes in front of because they've already decided he can't see them. I let Renata believe she was winning. That was the whole trap. I did 4 things quietly, over 3 weeks, none of them visible to Renata. First, I hired a private investigator, a retired detective named Ruth Calloway, referred by Priya, to build a formal paper trail on Voss Capital Solutions. Bank records, LLC filings, the works, all admissible. Second, I installed a small battery-powered camera inside the decorative clock on my office wall, angled at my desk, motion-activated, feeding to a cloud account only I could access. Third, I let it slip in casual conversation with Renata that I kept a large amount of cash and my late wife's jewelry in a home safe. A safe I'd actually emptied into a bank deposit box the same week. Fourth, and this was the part that made my pulse tick harder than I let on, I let my phone accidentally stay unlocked on the kitchen counter one evening while Renata visited, open to a fake email draft to Priya that read, I think I need to reconsider the LLC transfer. Something feels off. Can we meet Monday to discuss reversing it? I watched her read it over my shoulder while pretending to refill my coffee. Her jaw tightened for exactly 1 second before she smiled and said, You worry too much, Dad. 2 days later, my home alarm company called to say someone had disarmed my system using my daughter's registered code at 1:47 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand at 1:52 a.m. Ruth's number. Walter, your camera feed just triggered. Someone's in your office right now. I sat up in bed in the dark and watched, on my phone screen, my own daughter and her boyfriend moving through my shop office with flashlights, opening my file cabinet, planting something inside a folder marked taxes, a folder I never touched because Renata handled taxes. Then Trent pulled out a phone and dialed 911. I understood, in that moment, watching the little clock camera footage in real time, exactly what the police thing meant. The call Trent made claimed he'd witnessed Walter Kessler breaking into his own shop at 2 a.m., acting erratically, possibly armed, a danger to himself and others. 2 patrol cars arrived within 11 minutes. I was there. Of course I was there. It was my shop. I'd driven over the second, Ruth called. And that is how I ended up on my knees on cold concrete with a flashlight in my face and my daughter's phone recording every second of my humiliation for what I'd later learn was meant to become a guardianship petition exhibit. Elderly father, erratic behavior, possible diminished capacity. They took me in. I said nothing except my attorney's name. Priya had me out in 4 hours, and more importantly, Priya had already been on the phone with the lead detective, a weary, sharp-eyed man named Detective Oline, walking him through the camera footage, the bank records, and Ruth's report before I'd even finished my one phone call. Detective Oline opened my file in the processing room, scanned it for maybe 90 seconds, then looked up at the officer beside him and said 4 words that changed everything. Remove the charges. Now. He turned to me. Mr. Kessler, I think we need to talk about your daughter instead. 2 weeks later, I held a dinner. I told Renata I wanted to make things right, reinstate her fully, sign whatever paperwork made her comfortable, put the whole ugly misunderstanding behind us. She arrived glowing, Trent on her arm in a new watch, and half our extended family at the table, because I'd invited them too. Marcus flew in from Ohio, my sister Joan, 2 cousins. All told, it was a reconciliation dinner. Renata raised a glass early. To new beginnings. And to Dad finally understanding it's time to let go. Let go. I repeated, calm, unhurried. Funny you say that. I reached into my jacket and set 3 things on the white tablecloth, one at a time, slow enough that every eye at the table followed my hand. The assignment of membership interest, with the fraudulent notary stamp circled in red. A printed bank statement showing $187,000 flowing into Voss Capital Solutions. A single still frame from the clock camera, Renata's hand, mid-motion, planting a folder in my file cabinet at 1:51 a.m. The notary who stamped this document lost her license 8 months before she signed it. I said, voice level, unshaken, the whole table gone silent around me. Voss Capital Solutions has no employees and no invoices, just my money. And this, I tapped the photo, is you breaking into my office at 2 in the morning to plant evidence for a 911 call you made about me. Detective Oline has copies of all 3. Renata's face had gone the color of the tablecloth. Dad, you don't understand the context. I understand it perfectly. I understood it 3 weeks ago, standing in a hallway you didn't know I was in. I picked up the fraudulent assignment of membership interest with both hands and tore it, once, cleanly, down the middle, the sound sharp enough that Joan flinched. That's the last piece of paper you'll ever hold with my name and yours on the same line. Headlights swept the dining room window. Detective Oline, right on schedule, with a warrant for financial fraud, forgery, and filing a false police report. Renata Kessler Voss was arrested that night on the front lawn, in view of the same neighbors who'd once watched her play in that yard as a child. She was charged with forgery, elder financial exploitation, and filing a false police report. 6 months later, she pled guilty to reduced charges to avoid trial, and was sentenced to 18 months, with restitution of $187,000 ordered, a debt she is, as of this recording, still paying in monthly installments garnished from her wages. Trent Voss was charged separately for his role in Voss Capital Solutions and for the false 911 call. His employer, a financial advisory firm, terminated him within a week of the arrest hitting local news. His engagement to Renata quietly ended somewhere inside the 18 months. Voss Capital Solutions was dissolved by the state 4 months later. The fraudulent notary lost what remained of her business license permanently and now faces her own separate charges. I could have gone further. Renata's lawyer, in a moment of raw desperation, asked whether I'd consider pushing the shop's 11 employees to testify against her character, to paint the fullest possible picture at sentencing. I refused. Those 11 people had built oak tables beside me for years, some of them since before Renata was old enough to hold a chisel. I gave every one of them a retention bonus that spring, told them the shop's future had nothing to do with anyone's last name but Kessler, and reorganized Kessler and Sons Woodworks as Kessler and Kessler, with Marcus, who flew home for good 3 months after that dinner, as my new partner. It was raining the night Renata came back, 11 months after her release. A thin coat pulled tight against a February storm, no umbrella, a duffel bag that looked like it held everything she owned. She stood on my porch, mascara running, knocking soft, the same soft knock she'd used as a teenager sneaking in past curfew. Dad, please. I have nowhere else to go. Trent's gone, the apartment's gone. I just need somewhere for a few nights. I swear I've changed. I stood in the doorway with the porch light behind me, warm and dry, and looked at my daughter for a long moment. You planted evidence in my own office and called the police on me at 2 in the morning. I said, calm, not unkind, not cruel, just final. I hope you build something real out of what's left. But it won't be built here. I closed the door. Not hard, just firm, the way you close a chapter you finally finished reading. Marcus was in the kitchen, 2 mugs of coffee already poured, one waiting for me. He didn't ask what happened. He'd heard the knock too. You okay, Dad? I sat down across from him, wrapped my hands around the warm mug, and for the first time in over a year, felt something in my chest unclench completely. Yes, son, I said. For the first time in a long while, I really am. Trust isn't something you owe someone because of blood. It's something they earn, and something they can lose, no matter what they call you when they want something. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't fighting back loudly. It's staying quiet long enough to let the truth build its own case.